What's up, Impact? Hey, y'all, happy Wednesday. We're so glad y'all decided to tune in here. I am hanging out outside of Bar Burritos in High Point because Bar Burritos is absolutely delicious. Hey, y'all, out in Oak Ridge, over in Jamestown and Kernersville, thank y'all so much for tuning in and being a part of Impact tonight. We can't wait to see y'all in like 2 weeks. It's going to be awesome, the 21st. We cannot wait to see you guys wherever you are. Hey, shout out to all the 6th graders out in Oak Ridge who are tuned in watching tonight. Shout out to all the 6th graders in Kernersville who I hung out with at East Coast Wings the other night. You guys were a blast. Even though you guys all like blue cheese better than ranch, I don't really know what's wrong with you guys. I'm just kidding, blue cheese for life. Hey, but we love you guys. We're praying for y'all. We cannot wait to see y'all in 2 weeks. It's going to be great. Tonight we are in week 3 of our family series. Jake has a great message talking to you guys about change and how to handle it, because it's all going to come in our lives. Hey, y'all, we love you. We're praying for you. Check out Jake's message because you're going to love it. It's great. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Yo, what is up, Impact? It's Jake here, and I'm so excited to be giving week 3 of our message in our series, Family Matters. This week we're going to be talking about something that affects all of us, something that affects every single family, no matter where you're coming from. I'm sure you have dealt with this. But let's kick off today's service with something that is kind of an obvious statement, right? This is the Captain Obvious Award, and it's this right here. Things change, right? Everything changes. Nothing is always the same, right? Things change all the time. Sometimes when things change, we kind of expect them to change, right? Like maybe, at the beginning of this school year, you just entered into a new grade, right? Last year you were a grade lower, now you're a grade higher. Things change. That happens every single year. You get new classes, new teachers. You're going in a new direction because you're getting older. You expect that to happen, right? You're growing up. That's an expected change. And the thing with an expected change is that you can kind of prepare for it. You know what's coming. You know you can do something to make that change a little bit more bearable. But also, on the other side of that, there's changes that happen that are unexpected, right? Things that we don't expect to happen, and therefore, by that logic, we can't prepare for those changes, right? And that makes unexpected changes, a lot of the times, those are the hardest changes to deal with because we have no place to prepare. We have no room to prepare, right? They just come and they get us, right? And sometimes that can be detrimental. Unexpected change has a way of disrupting our lives, and that's something that we're going to dive into today. For all of us, change happens all the time, right? Whether it's people, whether it's things, like we expect things to stay the same a lot, right? We expect things to stay the same all the time, whether it's people, places, or groups of people that make us feel secure. Like we want those things to stay the same, but the reality is that a lot of those things change. Actually, I would say all of those things change many times throughout our lives. But for many of us, we've considered our family to be a thing for us that remains constant, right? We want our family to be something that is safe, our family to be something that is secure, something that we can always lean on, something that we can always trust in, that our family is always there. Like maybe the entire world can leave us behind, the entire world can forsake us and all that stuff, but our family is still there, right? At least I still have my family to rely on. A lot of the times we feel that way. Or maybe you don't come from that background. Maybe your family has never been that for you, and I am so sorry if that's the case. If your family has never been something you can rely on. However, I think we can all say that family is something that should be considered reliable, right? We all feel that inside, that our family should be something that's considered reliable or something that's safe or something that's secure, because that's the way family should be, right? Even in the midst of change, we all think inside of us our family should be constant, right? So when change happens, especially in a family, if unexpected change happens, it can be a little bit more difficult to deal with, especially in the context of a family, because if family's supposed to be constant, and then when it's not constant, man, how do you reconcile that? Maybe there's some examples here for you. Maybe your family, maybe your parents are sadly going through a divorce. Maybe they've already gotten divorced, and it kind of feels like your family's being, taken away from you that way. Or maybe you had a parent pass away. You had a parent who died, and I'm so sorry if that's you. My heart breaks for you because you've lost that staple in your family. Or maybe it was something smaller. Maybe it wasn't a huge change like that, but it was still unexpected. Maybe it was like a job loss or a complete change of lifestyle. Or maybe it was a good thing. Maybe your parents had another kid. They brought a new addition into the family. Or maybe you had an older sibling who just went away to college. Maybe your family is changing in size and in number and all those things. No matter what our experience is with change within our family, something about it happening within the family makes it a little bit more difficult. So how can we be prepared when this change inevitably happens, right? Change is coming. It's not a if it comes, it's but when it comes, right? How can we be prepared for when it does happen? Well, if you look at the Bible, you might be surprised to see that a lot of the writers were helpful when it comes to dealing with change. Biblical times were changing rapidly, y'all. I mean, things changed within 5 minutes in the Bible, and the people who wrote the Bible decided to write these things down. They wrote the history of it, but they also wrote how they were feeling with it. They wrote their thoughts to God. They wrote all of this stuff. And the writer of one of the Old Testament books called Ecclesiastes, many people believe that was King Solomon, had a lot to say about change, right? This is something that King Solomon lived through. His whole life was just constantly up and down, and he wrote a lot about it. In this passage we're going to look at, Solomon is writing about something. Solomon's writing about some things he's observed within his lifetime, and that includes changing times. We're looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, and that reads like this. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So what is Solomon saying here? Well, basically what he's saying, Solomon is letting us know that everything is going to change at one point or another. It's inevitable. There's a time for this and a time for this. There's a time for one thing and a time for the complete opposite, is basically what Solomon's saying. He's saying it's out of our control. Things are going to change. But the truth is that when we know things will change, both in our families and in the world around us, we can be prepared to deal with it, right? We're not just sheep wandering around that just can't be prepared for all of this stuff, or we can't have something to do in the times that, that do change. No, we can be prepared for these things. So instead of fighting change and pretending like things will always stay the same, we can open up our hands and give up control. You see, control is something that we always want to have. Whether you are a controlling person or not, it doesn't really matter, right? You always want to have some sense of control on your own life. And when we lose a sense of control, that's when we start to panic. But here's the magical thing. I shouldn't say it's magical because God's not magical, but God is awesome and God is powerful. And here's the super powerful thing about God that almost flips this whole dichotomy on its head of us wanting to have control. When we give up control to God, God gives us peace within the change. In this life of constant change, God has also made a promise to us. Now, unfortunately, God's promise to us isn't that change is going to be easy, right? He doesn't say, I'm going to make change easy for you. I wish he said that, but that's not what he said. Instead, he says this. In the book of Isaiah, God gave a promise to his people. It's Isaiah 43, verse 2. And he says this right here. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep you over. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. You see, the people God was talking to in this piece of the Bible, the same promise still applies to us today. Everything around them was changing. Their entire world was being flipped on its head. It was huge change, but God was not changing. Everything else was changing, but God was constant. And the same is still true for us. In every single moment of every single change, including a change within your family, God will be with you. God still loves you. God is still for you. And he made a promise to us that he will protect you, that he will be with you, and that he will see you through. You see, God has the ability to give peace even in the midst of unfathomable change, right? Change that's so big that we can't even comprehend it. God said, I will still give you peace. All we have to do is give up that control. And so we're going to talk about that. What does it look like in our lives to actually give up control? What does it look like in our lives to stop thinking that things will stay the same and start to embrace the change and actually see how God can use the change for good in your life? We're going to talk about that right now in your groups. I hope you have a great discussion. I love you guys. Peace out.